Hello, everyone. This is Rick with the Cyber Pro podcast. We're excited today. We're talking to Rob Allen, Chief Product Officer for ThreatLocker. Rob, who are you and what do you do?
I am Rob Allen. I'm Chief Product Officer here with ThreatLocker. I've been with the company for about 4 years, best 4 years of my life. My background before that is I worked for a MSP for an IT company for almost 18 years. So the way I like to look at it is I spent many of those 18 years cleaning up cyber attacks, cleaning up ransomware attacks, cleaning up the messes that happen. And I've gone from that to trying to prevent them from happening. And it's amazing. Just seeing things from the other side, being the ones trying to stop it rather than ones trying to clean up after it.
I love it. And I've heard really amazing things about the culture at ThreatLocker. Sounds like you agree with that. You've also been very public about you guys are hiring. Like you guys are killing it right now. So what is ThreatLocker?
Well, the hiring thing, yeah, we've grown pretty exponentially over the last number of years. I think I heard we past 500 staff. That's across our head office here in Orlando, in Florida. We've got staff in Dublin. We've got staff in the Middle East. We've got staff in Australia now as well. So it's gone from, I think when I joined, there was about 30 people, maybe 35 working for the company. So from that to 500 in 4 years is pretty amazing. I think it speaks to the value of what we do. We pretty much take a different approach to cybersecurity to your traditional tools. Your traditional tools are primarily interested in stopping bad things, identifying things as bad, first of all, and then stopping them or deleting them or terminating them or reverting from them. They're effectively reactive. Bad things happen. Let's do something about it. We take a slightly different approach, which is effectively we are preventative. So we try and stop the bad thing happening in the first place rather than having to react to it. Now, you could argue a well-balanced security stack should have elements of both. So you should have preventative and proactive, and you should have reactive as well. And we actually do that now between our protect and detect products. Basically, we sort of fill both use cases. But fundamentally, we are a default deny zero trust solution. So we basically start with blocking everything that isn't explicitly allowed from running. So not just bad things, everything that isn't allowed. And it's only when you're sort of in the position that we're in now is we can actually see the importance of that blocking everything, because there's so many situations where legitimate things are being misused. We see, ransomware attacks where the only things that are used are AnyDesk and Orclone for data exfiltration or, PowerShell. That's all they need. And a lot of cases now, ransomware attacks don't even require encryption. Technically, you can encrypt with, WinRAR, for example, is a really cool encryption tool. But equally, bad guys can use it to encrypt data, then they delete it and they go, hey, pay us. But as I said, a lot of ransomware attacks now, it's more about the exfiltration of data. And once you get the data out, you don't even need to encrypt data. In a lot of cases, the encryption of data is just a way of going, hi, we've been in, by the way, we've got your stuff, pay us. So with that in mind, with the fact that otherwise legitimate tools can be weaponized and can be used against organizations, it highlights the importance of blocking not just bad things or known bad things, but also good things that can be misused.
I like that. Let's talk a little bit about zero trust, because I think people, they confuse it, right? They confuse zero trust, the default deny that you guys call it, the trust but verify, with like a ZTNA solution. But what is zero trust? Why is it important?
I think it's the opposite of trust but verify. So trust but verify is fundamentally what most other tools do. They allow everything to run unless they know it to be bad. They allow everything to happen unless they know it to be bad. That's not what we're talking about at all. Effectively, we're talking about zero trust, you might say. So don't allow something to run just because it tries to run. Don't allow something to happen just because it tries to happen. By being proactive and, as I said, denying by default, there's lots of different ways to look at or to describe zero trust. One of my favorite definitions is to assume a breach is inevitable. or has already likely occurred. So constantly limit access to only what's needed. I mean, assume breach is a really good way of summing it up. You know, they're in my environment right now. They're on my servers. They've got domain, admin credentials. What's going to happen? You know, what can they do? In normal situations, the answer is a lot. You know what I mean? It's not difficult to exfiltrate data. It's not difficult to, you know, one thing that we've seen recently is a tendency for, like, so say environments with servers, Hyper-V servers. A lot of people run things like Hyper-V. A lot of people have important data on VHCs within Hyper-V. You know, a really easy way to get around those traditional defenses, traditional software, is to shut down the VM, mount the VHD on the host, go to, you know, program files, delete your EDR, delete your, you know, various traditional tools, boot the VM again. You've just bypassed all of those defenses. Now, that's an issue. That's a problem. Now, the solution to that is not in detection, although, you know, maybe you could detect the fact that the VHD is mounted, but I mean, VHDs get mounted all the time. What we would suggest is you apply controls. So you say, well, look, the only things that need to access a VHD file are, in this case, Hyper-V, or is Hyper-V. Or rather, why would anything other than Hyper-V need to access a VHD? Now, you can take that and apply it in a lot of different areas. I mean, same with a SQL server, for example. Why would anything except SQL Server.exe need to access a SQL Server's database? I mean, maybe your backup software does as well, but like Windows Explorer doesn't need to access a SQL Server's database. A piece of ransomware certainly doesn't need to access a SQL Server's database. So again, just applying that principle of deny by default. So just because something can happen doesn't mean it should be allowed to happen. And if you can deny by default, if you can block first and basically permit by exception, and that's what we're talking about. It's not just about default deny. It's about default deny, permit by exception. So allow what needs to run, allow what needs to happen, and block everything else. And you're going to make your environment a far less friendly place for your average attacker.
I like it. So how is ThreatLocker's approach a little different? And how are you guys evolving the marketplace?
So, I mean, everybody likes to call themselves zero trust nowadays. It's somewhat of a buzzword, but I like to think that we are the purest form of zero trust. As I said, default deny, you know, restricting access to only what's needed, etc. I think it is the purest form of zero trust. It has historically it's been challenging. And I'm not, anybody who's tried to implement allow listing with any of the tools that are out there will tell you that. They'll say it's a really heavy lift. I suppose the difference that we've made is we've made it manageable. We've made it attainable for even small and medium organizations to take that approach. And there's a few ways we do that. I mean, we do a lot of the heavy lifting in the background. We create policies automatically. You don't need to figure out everything that's needed. We're going to see everything that's needed and we're going to create policies for you automatically. We also take a lot of the heavy lifting out in terms of application updates, because again, one of the problems historically with allowed listing has always been, well, what happens when my software updates? And as I said, anybody who's used any of the traditional tools will tell you stuff breaks. So we have a unique approach to that, which is we've got an applications team who work 24/7, 365, cataloging applications, downloading them, installing them, anything new. Okay, we're going to add it to a built-in definition. And they get pushed out to customers who use those built-ins automatically. So in most cases, customers don't need to worry about updates causing problems with their software. So it just takes so much of that heavy lifting out of the process. We also are solutions engineers, support team, best in the business. And I mean, obviously I'm biased, but as I said at the start, I have been on the other side of the fence. I have been the person who has been, you know, logging mission critical ticket with Microsoft, and somebody comes back to you 3 days later going, is that still a problem? There's none of that here. Our average response time, I think, on our support chat, which is again human beings based in the office here in Orlando, as opposed to either AI or, you know, somebody wherever, is 20 seconds. So you start a chat with our support guys, somebody's on call with you 20 seconds later. So it all comes. You mentioned at the beginning the sort of ethos of the company. I mean, our CEO, it literally starts at the top down. I mean, he will somebody call something gets escalated at 3 o'clock in the morning. He will be on that call if needs be, and that permeates all the way through the organization.
I love it, Rob. We always love to end the podcast with a fun question. So here's your fun question: what's your favorite piece of retro technology that makes you smile?
Retro technology. Oh, now I'm going to tell you something, but it's not going to make any sense to you. It's okay. So my favorite piece of retro technology is a Sinclair Spectrum 48K. Now, Sinclairs, I think, came out in the UK around the same time as Commodore 64s were probably more popular over here. And by the way, I'm very much showing my age now. But a Sinclair Spectrum was basically my first ever computer. You used to use tapes to load stuff. You could break into games by going Control and Z, and then you could give yourself more lives. But it used to have these rubber keys, right? So your Commodore 64 had like plastic keys. Sinclair Spectrum was a small little thing, but it used to have a rubber keyboard. And I can still, in my mind, remember the feel of those keys. It was just so nice tapping on a rubber keyboard. That's when
maybe we need to create one of those keyboards. You're onto something.
You know what? I should actually just go onto eBay or somewhere and buy one of them, because I'm pretty sure they're readily available. But yeah, as I said, I'm basically showing where I'm from, which is obviously originally not the US, because I went Sinclair Spectrum rather than Commodore 64, and very much showing my age because they were around in the very early 80s.
Rob, thank you so much. That was awesome. Thank you so much for being on the Cyber Pro podcast.
No problem at all, Rick. Pleasure.
Thank you for tuning into the Cyber Pro podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on new podcasts and all of our cool bonus content.